A beautiful Tuesday morning. It's 1st July 2025, and of course, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the continuation of your news and current affairs program, reaching you live from our Lagos Network studio on the ITV network. I am Joshua Okata. I'm not going to be doing this all alone, as I'm being joined by my co-anchor, Mercelina Onkwo. Good morning, Mercy.
Good morning, Joshua. How are you doing today?
Very well, thanks.
You're good.
Thank you so much, and you too.
Thank you very much.
All right, on the program this morning, we will be focusing our attention on the insecurity festering the Southern Senatorial District of Kwara State. And of course, it's interesting to note that, once in a while, at some point in time, the indigents of the 7th Senatorial District in Kwara State, precisely the southern part, once enjoyed what we could call a paradisic condition, where we could talk about beautiful sceneries and peaceful environment with, of course, friendly inhabitants. But of course, sadly, these, somewhat paradisic region has become a ghost of itself, with the fact that we now have what we call a beehive of activities of kidnappers and and armed banditry that have festered this area, so much so that farmers have lost their livelihood to such nefarious activities. And of course, the indigents in these regions are now living practically in fear and of course at the mercy of these criminals. The question is, for how long will this continue? And what pragmatic steps, in view of our discussion this morning, can we prefer to both state and local government to bring an end to these criminal activities going on in the southern part of Kwara State, and of course to make farmers go back to their business once again? Now, to have this conversation this morning with me, I'm being joined by our guest in the person of Mr. Dami Damola Kolawole Esquire. He is a legal practitioner and of course a public affairs analyst. Good morning, Mr. Dami, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning, all our listeners at home. Good morning, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome once again.
Thank you.
All right, now let's go into the crux of the matter. You heard my monologue, and of course you understood the fact that there are 7 local government areas in the Southern Senatorial District of Kwara State. And of course, it's so sad that these indigents across this local government area now live in fear and at the mercy of these criminal activities going on in that region. As we have it today, we have 2 categories of criminals. One is a foreign element ambushing road users and of course attacking communities to kidnap and of course to demand for ransom. We also have another armed, category. They call them armed headers, who graze cattle into farms and mauling farmers and of course stand in their way. Now the issue is, this seems more like a well premeditated, well orchestrated and of course well coordinated criminal activities. What's your take on that?
Well, thank you. I listened to you. It's quite interesting, really, for us to actually dichotomize the understanding of security into the idea that there are foreign infiltration into Nigeria's security network, and then the fact that they are also domestic collaborators. But well, insecurity is insecurity, whether there are infiltrators from, neighboring countries, foreign land, or there are, some persons that are interested in destabilizing a region in Nigeria. That is not the interest. The interest is quite clear, the responsibility of government to secure its citizen. It's a primary responsibility encapsulated in Section 14 sub 2B of the 1999 Constitution as amended. So it is clear that, whether there are collaborators or infiltrators, whichever way or whatever way you call it, the importance is the right to life of Nigerians as encapsulated in Section 33 of the 1999 Constitution is primary. It's important. So if persons are trying to ensure the fact that Nigeria is not at peace, then the essence of government must come to play. And the essence of government is to protect Nigerians, protect every part of Nigeria. And I tell you, as a matter of fact, you see, the Constitution is also clear about the fact that all Nigerians are free to move around, wherever they want to stay, wherever they want to go, wherever they want to, do their business or live in Section 41. So, if the responsibility of government is to secure Nigerians, I believe that the responsibility of security is all for Nigerians and not just for the government alone. So, if you see in some quarters, some persons are saying, legalize the, the ownership of, people being able to carry arms in Nigeria, is simply because it has gotten to the stage where the capacity of the security agencies are not just enough. And that's the reason you saw in recent time that the president, tried to ensure the fact that there are more engagements of the uniform personnel in recent time.
Okay, Barrister Dami, the thing is, the issue of insecurity did not just start now. It has been happening for a very long time. Taking you back to a few weeks back about the Benue massacre and all of that. What these people, what we Nigerians, what every one of us want to hear is how do we tackle insecurity in this country, And a lot of persons are saying that the current ruling party, that is the All Progressive Congress, APC, current ruling party, they are not doing too much about concerning the security in this country. And there are speculations everywhere saying that, the fact that they could not work on security now while they are ruling, how we're sure when they come 2027 they're going to tackle the issue of insecurity. The question now is, our government, they're seeing all those things. Like I said earlier, it has been happening. What have they done about it?
Well,
take it up from there.
Well, the question is, what have they done about it?
Yes.
You see, the first cardinal principle of life is self-preservation. Before you think about the economy, before you think about commerce, before you think about interactions, religious, ethnic, relationship, commerce, and every other, you must think first about security. Because without security of life, I don't think we are going to be doing business. Yeah. If we are in massive insecurity now, I am sure we are not going to be here. Sure. Now, if we are talking about the epistemology of security development in Nigeria, you must understand that it is not this government. Let's be factual with ourselves. We are not playing politics with our lives. It is not about the present government. If you look back to 1999, we have massive insecurity in Nigeria. If you look back to the 2007, there is massive insecurity in Nigeria. If you look back to the 2015, there is massive insecurity in Nigeria. So it has been on for some time, to the extent that so far, insecurity in Nigeria today has become more or less an institution. If anyone is telling you that it is this present government that actually constitutes insecurity, or more or less have been, political about the solution of insecurity, that is a fallacy, as far as I'm concerned. So the most important thing we need to understand is that there is a process, a generic thing. There's a foundational, defect. You see, we will talk about institutional defect. There's no doubt about that. Okay. And then if you talk about the institutional defect within the context of our security agencies, it is not this government. It has actually evolved from time.
The question now is, how do we tackle it?
You see, you want to tackle insecurity, it must be systemic. Okay. You cannot tackle insecurity just by the mere word of it. The methodology of tackling insecurity, at first, you see, Nigeria has a very potent weapon in its hands, and I'll tell you. And the international community relates with us based on the very potent weapon as coinaged by me. What do I mean by that? You see, if you look at the means and manner by which the international relationship are, the international dependencies and interrelativity, you understand that we have a massive population. We have resources. we have the technical know-how. Forget all these, issues of international infiltrators. No, if we put our acts, perfectly, look at the policing. We don't have enough manpower when it comes to policing. We don't have enough, and I tell you, the numbers of technocrats in the Nigerian police, in the past, a whole lot of persons that goes into, joining the police, people believe they are miscreants. People do not have anything to do. But it's a different thing now. A lot of intelligible persons. You see professors in Nigerian police force, PhD holders in Nigerian police force. You see a senior advocate in Nigerian police force. You see, the funny thing that I, as a lawyer, I'm a product of a senior police officer. You see, so it is not the same. But you see, this present government are only trying to resolve the multifaceted plethora of issues that are actually, bedeviled the process for a long time. Right. So it is not something that can be done within a twinkling of an eye. It's a systemic, process.
Okay, so I believe and also want to accept your submission when you said, when we look at insecurity in the country, we should not try to look at it by the present administration that has constituted that mess.
If we are looking at the present administration, we are only going to be looking at the peripheral understanding of insecurity.
So you are tracing it back even to 1999 when even we got the democratic nation Nigeria as it were. Now the question I want to ask you, let's try to bring it down to the southern Kwara state, in as much as we are also going to link it up to the federal level. In June alone, in some localities in Irekpodun local government in Kwara state, we have several persons that have been kidnapped, killed, security agencies, and of course, we have a report where a Chinese national somewhere in a mining site was kidnapped and a ransom to the tune of 1 billion naira was demanded. No one knows how much they negotiated at the end of the day and paid. The question is, what could be done at the state level to be able to address this issue? Because as we have it now, 7 communities are in the hands of these criminals. So it means that there has been somewhat of a suspension of a government presence across the state. So what could be done at that root cause? Because the last time I checked, we had what we call regional policing, somewhat, where we had the likes of the Amotekun. Does it mean that it doesn't cover that particular state, so much so that the local government are now in the hands of these criminals, as it were, criminalities walk with 4 legs in broad daylight? What's your take on that?
I'm going to take it from, what I said earlier. I made you understand, and I'm, repeating it, reiterating it, the fact that it's a systemic, process. It's a methodological process, looking at the epistemology of insecurity in Nigeria to where we find ourselves today. Let me tell you, only the provisions of the Nigerian police force on its own has various units within the provision of the Nigerian police force. We have the general duty police officers. We have the supernumerary police officers. We have the constabulary police officers. We have the specialist police officers. You see, until we tend to look deep into our constitutional provisions and energize every unit involved in security. It is not just the Nigerian police, not just the Nigerian army, not just the Nigerian navy. No. Security is look, and I tell you, and I'm going to repeat this, it is important for us to decentralize the security architecture of the state. The centralized system of Nigerian police that we practice today will not just work. And I'm going to repeat it. I'm ready to defend this anyway. Within the rights of my, right to section 39, the right of my opinion. We cannot maintain a unitary system of policing. It won't work. That same style policing that we are practicing today will not be the kind of policing that will man Potiskum, man Kakuri, man Mushi, man Idioro at the same time. It will not work.
So the idea of saying that the governor is merely an executive officer of the state exists on paper, so it has no control over the state
governor
security.
Is the chief executive officer of the state.
So
the chief executive officer of the state is not the chief executive enforcer.
Of the
Is
law.
not. It is the governor is not the one in charge of security architecture of his own state. Even though he is the chief executive officer of the state, he is not in charge of security architecture.
So at local
The best
level,
you
at
can
local
do,
level,
yes,
what can he do?
Look, there is,
Because we know most of these governors.
Let
have
me explain something to you now.
The security votes at their disposal.
Let me explain something to you. How do you expect the governor to give an order to the Inspector General of Police? Who is the appointer of the Inspector General of Police? It doesn't just work like that. Giving an order to the Commissioner of Police will be more or less on advisory or discretional ground. It will not be an authority to be obeyed. The authority to be obeyed comes from the hierarchical structure of the Nigerian policing. And you should understand that an action taken by a DPO in Kwara State, or an action taken by an Assistant Commissioner of Police who mounts a command in Kwara State, that action will come from the CP of that state, which is the Commissioner of Police of that state, who also takes an order from an Assistant Inspector General of Police, who also takes an order from a Deputy Inspector General of Police Operations directly to the Inspector General of Police Office. So tell me, that organogram, so to say, how do you expect that? Look, take an order from a Mushi, from Idioro, from Oloson, and you take a unitary order on your own, and I can tell you as a matter of fact, once there's a casualty involved in that order taking, or that unilateral decision taken by you, the DPO, you will be the one to answer for it, because they will ask you a question. Who gave you that order?
So in view of this tall order, it means that the killings, the brigandry going on in southern Kaduna will continue to fester.
Do you know the reason why at times you ask yourself a question like, oh, there is a problem so place, and then you call the police division or police area command in that area, and then you now tell me that within the context of the fact that you actually called that area command, that it took so time, where you call the response time, for them to get to the place of where the crimes and criminality is being perpetrated. And then at the end of the day, you now discover that after the whole criminal activities that the police now arrived, and you say, oh, it took almost an hour, it took almost 2 hours before there was a response.
Is it that they will have to take permission from?
There has to be an order.
They have to be an order.
Look, that's what we look in the system where it's an organogram system. It's an hierarchical structure. You don't take unilateral order. If you take a unilateral order on your own, one thing stands, that you will bear the consequences. Look, it is not something that you can. An order must be taken, because it is an order system. It is a process. Such a process is a unitary it's a centralized process.
So you're not allowed to
act
independently.
You cannot only you see the discretion you take, you will be the one to actually bear the consequences of your discretion. And that's the reason why we say, look, at this time, look, let me give you an example.
So talk to us about the legal framework.
Let me give you an example. You see, the system of traffic regulation in Lagos State, for example, that is being managed by LASMA. You see, if for the fact that LASMA managed the traffic system in Lagos, traffic in Lagos, for what traffic in Lagos used to be, is not traffic in Lagos for what traffic in Lagos is now. There's a difference in what the law ought to be, what the law is, and what the law ought to be. Now, in the context of policing, we have said this many times. We have gone past the centralized system of policing. At this stage that we are in, there is the necessity for state policing. Those states, personnel of policing of a state understands the local system of that state. They understand the nitty-gritty and the areas, the corners of the state.
But there is this argument that if
you are talking about political issues,
yes, if you
that they are probably going to be used,
yes, on the people.
Listen to me. Yes. You are looking at the pros and cons, but I'm going to tell you that there is no perfect system. There's no perfect. You develop along with the system. Our democratic, consolidation is not in the perfect stage where it should be. We are not in tandem with the best democracies of the world, you know, the American democracy.
All right.
We are not in tandem with the best security system of the world, the American security. We are not in tandem with even the best economics of the world. We are not in tandem with them. So the idea is we are in a process, and that process is also called the process of development. You see, one thing you need to understand is if we don't decentralize the system now, you cannot have an effective, you know, policing in Nigeria, because a state needs to have its own policing. Give an example. When we talk in comparative understanding. Metropolitan Police, the New York Police Department, the this and that police department. Nigeria needs to come. Look, we are in a massive population, and then the number of policing that we have today, it is too minute, you know, compared to the population.
So what you're saying now is Nigeria still had a long way to go.
Oh, let me tell you, in fact, by the time we start decentralization of the policing system, you will now understand quite well that Lagos, you know, police department, Edo police department, Kogi police department, you understand? There is still going to be the existence of the federal police, okay, system.
All right.
That's the reason why you find out at times, look, it's important you have your state police. It is important you have your local government police. It is important you have your community police. I know you eyeball to eyeball. Okay, I can tell you this is where you live. This is what you do in your community. You need to have community policing. Right. You need to decentralize the organogram of the Nigerian police system.
While the issue of decentralizing the police system is something that cannot be overemphasized. Now, talk to us about the issue of providing immediate resolution to this issue. Like Lagos, for instance, have enacted a law that also, metes out capital punishment like death sentence to kidnappers. Can we have such replicated in Kwara State, or does Kwara, as we have it today, have such?
Look, even the capital punishment that you talked about, how many governors have come out boldly to sign the death in execution of those offenders that had been sentenced in that context?
Some will tell you for religious reasons.
For whatever reasons. As it actually, you see, we are more or less known today as the retentionists within the context of capital punishment. There are abolitionist, nations that have actually abolished this idea of capital punishment because.
But don't you think it is actually deterrence?
Is it actually creating that deterrence that you actually that is the end product of capital punishment? The answer is no. One person that had killed 50 persons, are you going to kill him 50 times? Is that possible? You see? So, look, in as much as where we find ourselves now, we need to create every form of deterrence in context of, crimes and criminality. But look, the best means of deterrence is not even the capital punishment. Because if you look at there was a report, sometimes before that a place like Netherlands, there are no persons, in their correctional centers anymore, simply because there are avenues to actually make sure the things the citizens need, the wants, the demands, the comfortability of the citizens are much more provided than the avenue for criminality.
So now we're going back to the root cause, which is providing social welfare for the people.
If you don't make provisions for the people, how do you expect? Look, it is in the environment of lack. It is the environment of all these dichotomies and disparities between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie that is creating so much of insecurity.
Barrister Dami, all these things you're actually saying falls back to our government.
Look, it falls back to me and you.
Every one of us.
Because we are all government in your own regard.
Thank you so much. Barrister Dami Damola Kolawole Esquire, for coming on the show this morning. Really
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's our offering for you from our Lagos Network studios. Many thanks for watching.